The Christmas revelation, how I uncovered my fiancé's deception. I stepped through the front door of my fiancé's parents' estate 90 minutes ahead of schedule on Christmas Day, and the conversation I overheard from the study destroyed 3 years of planning in under 2 minutes. My name is Marcus Thompson, and this is the story of how a work meeting cancellation led to the most calculated response to betrayal I never thought I was capable of. The December air was crisp that afternoon as I drove through the upscale neighborhood where the Sinclair family had lived for 2 generations. I'd wrapped up my presentation to the board early, something that rarely happened in the demanding world of architectural consulting. 2 hours of unexpected freedom before the annual Sinclair Christmas celebration. 2 hours I decided to use surprising my fiancée Olivia instead of sitting alone in my apartment. The Sinclair mansion was impressive even by their neighborhood standards. Stone columns, manicured gardens even in winter, and enough square footage to house 3 families comfortably. Olivia's father, Richard Sinclair, was a successful real estate developer who never let anyone forget it. I could see cars already parked in the circular driveway, early arrivals for what would become a party of 50 guests. I grabbed the gift basket I'd assembled, expensive scotch for Richard and imported chocolates for Olivia's mother, Victoria, and walked toward the massive oak front door. That's when I heard voices coming from the partially open study window, Richard's deep baritone and Olivia's lighter tone mixing with Victoria's refined accent. Marcus proposed with his grandmother's ring, Olivia was saying, and I could hear the disdain in her voice. Can you believe it? A vintage ring? I had to pretend I loved it in front of everyone. My feet stopped moving on the stone pathway. The gift basket suddenly felt heavy in my hands. Well, darling, you won't have to wear it much longer, Victoria replied smoothly. It's Collywood Dargis a bigot. Alf, I had to be conjure-trock to the teen, when he had to be conjure-trocks addicted. Once you're married, you can have it reset into something more appropriate, or better yet, convince him to buy you a proper ring from Tiffany's. That's not even the worst part, Olivia continued, and I could hear her moving around the room, probably pouring herself wine from Richard's collection. He actually thinks we're going to live in that downtown loft he bought. Can you imagine? Me living in a loft? Richard chuckled, the sound grating against my nerves. The boy has no sense of what's appropriate for a Sinclair. That loft is barely 1,500 square feet. I've already talked to Daddy's lawyer, Olivia said, and I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. After the wedding, we'll file for a post-nuptial agreement. Marcus will sign it because he always does what I ask. Then, after a suitable period, maybe 2 years, I'll file for divorce. The agreement will ensure I get half of everything he owns, including that ridiculous loft which we can sell. Plus, I'll be entitled to alimony based on the lifestyle he provided during the marriage. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. 3 years. We'd been together for 3 years, engaged for 6 months, and this entire time she'd been planning to use me as a stepping stone to a divorce settlement. And what about children? Victoria asked. You know Marcus wants a family, Olivia laughed, that crystalline laugh I'd once found charming. Please, mother, I'm not ruining my figure for his fantasy of domestic life. I'll stall for those 2 years, blame it on career stress or something, and by the time the divorce comes through, I'll still be young enough to find someone actually worth marrying. Someone from your own social circle. Richard added approvingly, not some middle-class architect who got lucky with one successful project. The gift basket slipped from my hands and landed on the grass with a soft thud. None of them heard it over their continued conversation about my inadequacies and their plans for my financial destruction. I backed away from that window slowly, methodically, like I was defusing a bomb. In a way, I was. The bomb of my future, my plans, everything I'd believed about the woman I'd planned to spend my life with. I got back in my car, started the engine, and sat there for a full minute, watching the Sinclair mansion through my windshield. Among the Christmas lights they'd hired a company to install twinkled festively. Inside, my fiancée and her parents were celebrating my upcoming exploitation. I didn't cry, I didn't rage. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started making calls that would systematically dismantle their plans. The first call was to my attorney, Jennifer Martinez. We'd worked together on several property contracts and I trusted her completely. Marcus, Merry Christmas, Jennifer answered, sounding relaxed. What's going on? I need you to do something for me immediately, I said, my voice eerily calm. I need you to protect all my assets from my fiancé and prepare documentation for breaking our engagement. The relaxed tone vanished instantly. What happened? I just overheard Olivia, her mother, and her father planning my financial destruction. They're planning to manipulate me into a post-nuptial agreement and then divorce me for half my assets and alimony. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. Marcus, I'm so sorry, but thank God you found out now instead of after the wedding. Are you absolutely certain about what you heard? Every word, I replied. Can you help me? I can do better than help you. I can make sure Olivia Sinclair regrets ever thinking she could play you. Give me 2 hours. The second call was to my best friend and business partner, Derek Chen. We'd started our architectural firm together 5 years ago, and he'd never trusted Olivia. I should have listened to him. Marcus, where are you? Derek answered. I thought you'd be at the Sinclairs by now. Change of plans, I said. Derek, you were right about Olivia. I just overheard her planning to marry me for a divorce settlement. Derek let out a string of creative profanities. I knew it. I knew that woman was playing you. What do you need? I need you to help me document everything, every asset, every account, every property, and I need you to do it before Olivia realizes something's wrong. I'm on it. Meet me at the office in 30 minutes. We're going to protect everything you've built. The third call was the hardest. I called Olivia. She answered immediately, her voice sugary sweet. Marcus, darling, where are you? Everyone's asking about you. Still at the office, I lied smoothly. The board meeting ran long, and now there's an issue with the Henderson project. I need to stay and sort it out. On Christmas? She sounded annoyed, but not suspicious. Marcus, this is ridiculous. Can't someone else handle it? I'm the lead architect, Liv. I have to be here. I'll try to make it by dinner, but don't wait for me. Enjoy the party. Fine, she said, the sweetness evaporating. But you're making me look bad in front of my family. I'm sorry, I said, forcing contrition into my voice. I'll make it up to you. I hung up before she could respond and drove straight to Derek's office. By the time I arrived, Derek had already pulled up our firm's financial records on 3 different monitors. He turned to me with a grim expression. Okay, let's see what we're working with. You own 40% of the firm, valued at approximately $3 million. You have the downtown loft, worth $800,000, investment portfolio, retirement accounts, and savings total about $1.2 million. If Olivia married you and then divorced you with a post-nuptial agreement favoring her, she could walk away with over $2 million. I sat down heavily. $2 million for 2 years of fake marriage. It's a good scam, Derek admitted. If you hadn't overheard them, you would never have seen it coming. Olivia played the perfect fiancé. What's our move? I asked. Derek smiled, the kind of smile that meant he was about to suggest something brilliant and slightly devious. We make sure Olivia Sinclair gets exactly what she deserves, which is nothing. Over the next 3 hours, Derek and I worked with Jennifer to create an impenetrable financial strategy. We restructured my ownership in the firm, moving assets into trusts that couldn't be touched in a divorce. We refinanced the loft under the company's name. We moved investments into accounts that predated my relationship with Olivia. By the time we finished, my personal assets looked significantly smaller on paper, while being completely protected from any divorce claim. This is beautiful, Jennifer said, reviewing the final documents. If Olivia tries to claim anything, she'll find that you own almost nothing personally. Everything's held in trusts, corporate entities, or accounts that were established before you met her. What about the engagement ring? I asked. Jennifer smiled. That's a gift given in contemplation of marriage. When the engagement ends, you're legally entitled to its return, and since it's a family heirloom, you have even stronger grounds for recovery. When should I break the engagement? I asked. Not yet, Jennifer advised. Let's gather more evidence first. We need to make sure Olivia can't claim emotional distress or defamation. We need her plan documented from multiple sources. Derek leaned back in his chair. I might have an idea about that. The next day, December 26th, Derek arranged a lunch meeting with Olivia's best friend, Melissa Hartley. Melissa had gone to college with Derek and still considered him a good friend, which Olivia didn't know. Over expensive sushi, Derek casually mentioned that I'd seemed stressed about the wedding planning. Oh, Marcus is fine, Melissa said, waving her hand dismissively. Olivia has everything under control. She's even talking to lawyers about post-marriage financial planning. Derek raised an eyebrow. Post-nuptial agreements? That seems unusual. Melissa lowered her voice, looking around conspiratorially. Between us, Olivia's being smart. She knows Marcus has money, and she wants to make sure she's protected if things don't work out. Protected how? Derek asked innocently. Well, you know how it is. Marriages don't always last. Olivia's just making sure she doesn't walk away empty-handed if Marcus turns out to be different than he seems. Derek recorded the entire conversation with Melissa's unknowing consent, his phone sitting innocuously on the table between them. When he played it for me and Jennifer that evening, we had confirmation that Olivia's plan wasn't just a Christmas Day fantasy, but something she'd been actively discussing and planning. This is perfect, Jennifer said. Now we have evidence that this wasn't a momentary conversation but a premeditated scheme to defraud you through marriage. What's next? I asked her. Now we spring the trap. Before you hear what happened next, if you're enjoying this story, please hit that subscribe button and leave a comment below about a time when you discovered someone's true intentions. Your support helps me continue sharing these stories. Quote, now, back to the moment everything changed. On December 28th, I arranged a family dinner at an upscale restaurant, the kind of place the Sinclairs approved of. I told Olivia I wanted to discuss wedding details with everyone present, Richard, Victoria, her younger brother Preston, and my parents who'd flown in for the holidays. The private dining room was elegant, with a view of the city skyline. Richard ordered expensive wine without looking at the prices. Victoria critiqued the table settings. Preston looked bored. My parents looked uncomfortable. They'd never quite fit in with the Sinclairs' social circle. Marcus, darling, this is lovely, Olivia said, squeezing my hand across the table. What did you want to discuss? I pulled out a folder and set it on the table. I wanted to talk about our future, specifically our financial future. Richard perked up. Good man, thinking ahead. Financial planning is essential for a successful marriage. I agree, I said calmly, which is why I've had my attorney prepare some documents. I slid copies of the financial restructuring across the table to Richard and Victoria. Their expressions shifted from interest to confusion as they read. I don't understand, Victoria said slowly. This shows you have almost no personal assets. That's correct, I replied. Everything I own is now held in trusts, corporate entities, and protected accounts. In the event of a divorce, there would be nothing for a spouse to claim. Olivia's face went pale. Marcus, why would you do this? Don't you trust me? Should I asked, pulling out my phone. Should I trust someone who planned to manipulate me into a post-nuptial agreement and then divorce me for half my wealth? The table went silent. Even the server who'd been approaching retreated quickly. That's absurd, Richard blustered. Where would you get such an idea? I pressed play on my phone. The recording of their Christmas Day conversation filled the room, crystal clear and damning. Olivia's voice describing the vintage ring with disdain. Victoria's voice discussing the post-nuptial agreement. Richard's voice mocking my middle-class background. As the recording played, I watched their faces change. Olivia looked horrified. Victoria looked furious. Richard looked calculating, probably already thinking about damage control. When the recording ended, I set my phone down. I was going to surprise you on Christmas Day. Instead, I got surprised. Marcus, let me explain, Olivia started, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. There's nothing to explain. Liv, you never loved me. You loved what you thought you could take from me. Because I also have a recording of Olivia's best friend, Melissa, confirming that these weren't hypothetical discussions but active plans. I played Derek's recording from the sushi lunch. Melissa's voice cheerfully describing Olivia's strategy for financial protection through a divorce settlement, where my mother, who'd been silent until now, spoke up quietly. Marcus, I think we should go. In a moment, Mom, I said. I turned to Olivia and removed my grandmother's ring from my pocket. I'd asked for it back that morning, claiming I wanted to have it cleaned before the wedding. Olivia had handed it over without suspicion. This ring has been in my family for 4 generations, I said. My grandmother wore it for 60 years of genuine marriage. You wore it for 6 months of calculated deception. I placed it in front of my mother. I think Grandma would want you to keep it safe for someone who actually deserves it. Olivia's carefully maintained composure cracked. You can't do this. You can't just break our engagement over a misunderstanding. Watch me, I said, standing up. Consider this dinner my official termination of our engagement. My attorney will contact you regarding the return of any gifts or shared property. Richard stood as well, his face red with anger. You, self-righteous little nobody. Do you have any idea what you're throwing away? My daughter could have made something of you. Your daughter was planning to unmake me for profit, I replied calmly. And I'm not a nobody, Mr. Sinclair. I'm a successful architect who's very good at structural planning, including the structure of my own life. I turned to my parents. Let's go. I know a much better restaurant where we can actually enjoy our evening. As we walked out, I could hear Olivia starting to cry, the kind of dramatic sobs designed to make me feel guilty. They didn't work. I felt nothing but relief that I'd discovered the truth before legally binding myself to someone so calculating. My father waited until we were in the parking lot before speaking. Son, that was the most satisfying dinner I've never eaten. Your mother and I never liked that girl. Why didn't you say something? I asked. My mother smiled sadly. Would you have listened? You seemed so happy. I was happy with an illusion, I admitted. Thank God the illusion shattered before the wedding. Over the next week, the fallout was spectacular. Olivia tried calling, texting, and even showing up at my loft. I'd already had the locks changed and given security her photo with instructions not to allow her entry. She sent mutual friends to plead her case, claiming I'd misunderstood, that she'd been joking, that the stress of wedding planning had made her say crazy things. But the recordings didn't lie, and I'd shared them with enough people that her reputation in our social circle was permanently damaged. Richard Sinclair tried a different approach, threatening legal action for defamation and invasion of privacy regarding the recordings. Jennifer shut that down immediately with a cease and desist letter explaining that the recordings were legal, that truth was an absolute defense against defamation, and that any lawsuit would result in the recordings becoming public court documents. The threat stopped. Victoria made one last attempt, reaching out through a society friend to suggest that perhaps we could work through this with couples counseling. I had Jennifer respond with a formal statement that the engagement was permanently terminated and any further contact would constitute harassment. 2 months after Christmas, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Olivia had started dating a hedge fund manager, someone with even more money than I had. I felt nothing but pity for the poor guy. From white by 6 months later, Derek and I landed the biggest project of our careers, designing a new tech campus for a Fortune 500 company. The contract was worth more than everything Olivia had planned to take from me in a divorce. You know what the best part is? Derek said as we celebrated the contract signing. You're building something real with your own hands and talent, not inheriting it or manipulating someone for it. That's worth more than any Sinclair could ever understand. He was right. The Sinclairs had built their wealth on real estate deals and social connections. I was building mine on actual skill and hard work. There was a satisfaction in that which no amount of inherited money could match. 1 year after Christmas, I ran into Olivia at a charity gala. She was there with the hedge fund manager, wearing a massive diamond ring that probably cost more than my car. She saw me and immediately looked away, but not before I caught the flash of embarrassment in her eyes. I didn't approach her. There was nothing to say. She'd made her choice, and I'd made mine. We were both living with the consequences. 2 years after Christmas, I met someone new at a project site. Her name was Rachel Kim, and she was a structural engineer working on the same development. She was brilliant, funny, and genuinely kind. She drove a 10-year-old Honda and lived in a modest apartment because she was saving money to start her own engineering firm. On our third date, I told her the whole story about Olivia and the Sinclairs. I expected sympathy or horror, but Rachel just laughed. "Good thing you found out when you did," she said. "Can you imagine being married to someone you couldn't trust? That would be worse than being alone." "Are you always this pragmatic?" I asked. "I'm an engineer," she replied with a smile. "We deal in facts and structural integrity. Your relationship with Olivia had neither." 6 months later, I proposed to Rachel with a ring we designed together. No family heirlooms, no vintage settings, just a simple, modern design that represented our partnership. She said yes without hesitation. 3 years after Christmas, Rachel and I got married in a small ceremony at a botanical garden. Derek was my best man. My parents cried happy tears, and there wasn't a Sinclair in sight. As I stood there watching Rachel walk down the aisle, I thought about that Christmas day when I'd overheard Olivia's plans. At the time, it had felt like my world was ending. But really, it was just beginning. The best revenge isn't destroying the people who hurt you. It's building something so genuine and strong that their betrayal becomes irrelevant. Olivia and the Sinclairs had taught me that lesson more effectively than any mentor could have. They'd shown me exactly what I didn't want in life, and in doing so, they'd helped me find what I did want: authenticity, partnership, and someone who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. If you found value in this story, please hit that like button and leave a comment below sharing your thoughts about trust and betrayal. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about overcoming deception and finding genuine happiness. Because sometimes the worst moments in our lives are actually redirecting us toward the best ones. We just have to be brave enough to walk away from the wrong path and find the right one.